Hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Give me a random thanks, Cordelia. I was called into the office today, so I'm presenting from a more low-powered laptop. So I've prepared some slides in case things crash, so I can at least show you things. But hopefully, after I go through some of these slides, I can show you some stuff running for real. While I get that set up, I am the Accessible Solutions Architect at University IT department at the University of Southampton. And I'm going to show you a few slides. Hopefully, you can see a few slides now. And I wanted to give you a bit of rapidly pressing the button, hoping my slides will move. Excellent. A bit of context for who I am and what I'm doing, because I'm a bit of an outsider. I'm not a mathematician at all. I'm just a guy, an accessibility guy, trying to make tools to help us do some better workflows. I'm just going to show you a few things I've been working on in over this year in chronological order, so that then you can see where I've been and how I've got to where I am now, and why I'm showing you what I'm showing you. So simple things like CVD image tester. So right now on screen, we've got a photo of some cooked mince in trichromatic view, but with the other types of color vision deficiency, particularly a protanopia or deuteranopia, uh, color vision deficiency affecting 8% of men, something like that. Um, it can be harder to tell when your food is cooked. I think this is a really nice example. So tools where you could just upload the image, check it out. This is a video, hopefully it will play for you, of a bookmarklet that I made for keyboard navigation testing, which shows extra focus indicators on what you're on and lists out what the elements are, their labels, ARIA attributes, and so on. Really useful for particularly demonstrating to vendors the problems with their tools. Um, this is something came up a couple of weeks ago. A student who has severe wrist pain didn't want to have a note taker and wanted to take the transcripts from our Panopto lecture capture system and use them to help capture notes. But our Panopto doesn't allow captions to be downloaded. So I made a bookmarklet that you can drag to your bookmarks bar. I've also got a non-dragging required method since he has wrist pain. But then click the button, get the text with or the transcript without all of that ugly timing stuff. And then he didn't ask for it, but I added in my web page a prompt so you could take take that transcript, drop it into Copilot, and get Copilot to create a nicely formatted version of that transcript to make it more readable. And then I'll give you a link at the end. So that's a bit of a demo there. And throughout the year, I've been working on AI tools. I'm getting quite a bit further now. So this is an example of a image describer. There are many image describers out there. Arizona State University is probably the most well-known and popular. Obviously, the benefit is how much context you can add. So with this one, I've added little drop downs, like this is engineering, it's about thermofluids, it's undergraduate year one, got the module code, any particular extras, generate the description. It'll then generate, as you would expect, a title or caption, 2 sentences of alt text, and then a nicely written long description with formatted text, so that for those that need long description, you've got it, and obviously with human in the loop to adjust and so on. But over the time, I learned something. So this is where we start to get a bit more relevant. While I was working on some of those AI tools, found LLMs are pretty cool at making graphs in chart.js format. So chart.js on the left, we've got some JSON. If you don't know what JSON is, think of it like a fancy CSV file. It describes the data that builds up a graph, and then you can then render it. And that's on the right is my first rendering of it, which is very plain. I wanted to introduce a color vision deficiency friendly version. I'm aware of lots of color vision deficiency friendly palettes. Most well known are from Paul Toll and Okabe and Ito. but they have, you get a set of 5 to 9 colors, but we would always have to have a background color with sufficient contrast. So I made a tool called Contrast Companion. You can drop in a set of color codes and it will find a color with sufficient contrast to all of them. So then I could introduce color vision deficiency friendly graph, both with pattern fill, color vision deficiency friendly palette, and a background which has sufficient contrast to all of them. So we can pass the 3:1 contrast ratio rule for background to the colors. And then I was thinking, yeah, but we need to be able to describe these graphs. Hopefully, some of you will be aware of Hugh Alexander's Described website. It's got 100+ explanations of how to describe different types of image. A lot of STEM-related imagery is in there. So for a long description, you need the structure, summary or overview, a list of data points, a data table. I thought, we've got all of this in the chart.js. We know it's a bar chart. We know the title. We know the x-axis and its labels and values. Same for the y-axis. So I've made a algorithmic graph generator based on chart.js. So you can click show description, and then it will build out algorithmically, not using AI. It just runs on your computer. A short description, detailed description starting with the construction, insights from the data like lowest, highest, median, distribution, list of data points, and an accessible data table. And on my page, I've now building out a graph builder tool so that you can build it without having to type out chart.js syntax to create. But this is just a demo of it kind of all rolling into one. On my AI tool using OpenRouter, just asking it, write me a short article about the impact of inflation on the modern economy. We'll first render the output in Markdown and then format it. Here I've got a mermaid diagram. I've also done algorithmic descriptions of mermaid. This is a timeline. Next, we've got a graph, different types of line style. So we're not relying on color alone, but we do have a CVD-friendly palette, algorithmically generated descriptions. And if I just pop out and go to Chrome, here I have, here's an example. So what's really nice is on this page, I've got a Markdown editor just so that I can test the results of the Markdown. But if I were to just fiddle with this graph and say I'm going to make this last value much lower, so and then re-render it, it now goes down to there. So that will change the description. So it's probably going to say, oh, look, overall decrease, because I've just massively reduced that. So that was something that I wanted to talk about, but what you're probably more interested in, other than graphs, is, I go to the next slide, is about STEM. So around the summer, we had some interns from helping us with accessibility, our accessibility allies, now in the 3rd year of running this project. They work with module leads to remediate module content. And we had your friend Luke Searle was talking them through LaTeX and using Pandoc to convert to more accessible outputs. And I came across Pandoc WASM. It's a WebAssembly build of Pandoc, which theoretically allows you to convert LaTeX to other formats just in your browser without needing to run something in the command line. So I started this in July, and this is a work in progress. I'm going to give you a video demo, and then I'm going to try and give you a quick overview of more of the detail. So got your typical light and dark mode, content, LaTeX on the left with syntax highlighting, HTML preview on the right. Click export, or you can export to SCORM, get an HTML version, a dynamically generated table of contents based on the heading structure, a kind of distraction-free mode, a bit like Immersive Reader, but then be able to change the font size, blah, 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 the usuals, line height, particularly important for dyslexic readers. And then with MathJax, so you've got your click to zoom and your braille and screen reader compatibility. I shared that after a month I got this far and shared it on JISC accessibility community. Didn't get much feedback. Then shared it on the JISC mailing list. Then I got a lot of feedback. Everyone telling me why it was wrong, why it was broken. So if I just fire up the browser here. So one of the first things people told me is you need independent scroll bars because latex is going to be shorter than the output. So luckily that was easy to add. I mean, obviously I'm not a mathematician, just like Kim. I got my GCSE, got a B, which I was amazed at, and then see you later. Um, then Cordelia sent me her accelerated calculus paper, 200 kilobytes of latex, which I have slowly working through, finding all of the bugs and fixing. Just to show you a few things I've been working on lately. I think this is the one that was I thought would be of most interest. I've got a chunking mechanism based on sections. So I again, I was just learning. I was like, wow, you can make your own like custom macros for how you build out latex. Wow, that's cool, isn't it? But well, how do you deal with that? And then oh yeah, sometimes you have numbering and sometimes you don't. Appreciate this must sound like a total ignoramus, but maybe sometimes it's nice to hear it from someone bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going, wow, this wasn't the one that I wanted, or maybe it was. Oh, you could do strike throughs. There's things for coloring and so on. So now if I press export, we should then get a version of that which will open. And it took some time. Now, the MathJax just takes a moment to render, which I'm going to have to work out with Cordelia's 200 kilobyte accelerated calculus. It can take like up to a minute for, I think there's 2,000 equations in your example that you gave me, Cordelia. So I need to work out to probably more progressive enhancement for MathJax, like maybe not try to render all 2,000 in the thing at the same time. And yeah, I would like to move to MathJax 4. I just started, I think about 2 weeks before MathJax 4 came out, totally the wrong time, but at least I figure 3.3.2, well, I think that's the last version of 3, at least that's the documentation is stable and LLMs certainly know that better than they know MathJax 4. But I've got things with Gather and Align and so on working with the numbering, without the numbering. It's like with the numbering is or without, is you have an asterisk at the end and to change that. So slowly getting there. If I go back to my slides, what I'm just a few notes. I've refactored this maybe 6 times now, but I'm really getting it more modular and compartmentalized, so it's actually easier to support and sustain. What I'm really interested in is anyone can give me some good examples of latex to test with. Most of what I'm using here is generated by LLMs. In fact, everything's generated by LLMs. I couldn't make this myself. And so hopefully this is going to kick off in a moment. Yes, here we are. So the math student told me no one writes maths like this. So, well, I guess one, I'm looking for something that looks more legitimate, and two, that looks that will help me to tease out some of the bugs and things that need to be fixed is what I'm particularly interested in. And maybe I said something else. Oh, yes, I was going to demo, which I've managed to do without it crashing. So that's that. Next, I'm going to go to my last point. I mean, tons of handwritten math solution sheets and so on. So MathPix is the main way to handle this. I don't like their program that much. And so I'm trying using their API, but with the API, you just get the key. You need to build your own thing. So I've got, this is a quick demo, then I'll demo a bit more detail. Submit your maths, get your outputs, preview, reuse, and so on. Here I've got a document, but because this is a video, I'm using something that is easy to share. I'll show you something internal that's more impressive to look at later. But handwritten, PDF, image, and camera control is what I'm looking at. Oh, and seeing Vincenzi mentioning TickZ. Do you know there is a TickZ WASM? Someone's compiled TickZ to WebAssembly. So once I feel more confident with the compatibility of LaTeX there, I'll do that. And sorry, I'm crossing the streams, talking about two things. Going back to Pandoc WASM, what my build is aiming to do is having something more that what you would upload into a VLE, that kind of chunked content. Not entire textbooks I'm thinking is not the ideal output, but something that a learning designer would say is a nice discrete piece of learning content rather than your 200 kilobyte LaTeX textbook. But I think that was only 40 pages of your accelerated calculus. So going back to MathPix, just to show you some things I've done more recently. What I'm building out here is ultimately going to be a tool for our learning technologists and learning designers. We've got AI, Markdown, graphs, image describer, then anything else that I add as I think of it. So now I'm going to upload a PDF. It is a solution sheet for some first year maths. If I do this, these are all the options that you get when you use the API. What I found, which they did not document, there's lots of things that MathPix don't document, is if you use the EU endpoint, you can't get PDF of LaTeX rendering. They only support that on the American endpoint. And I think if you use their actual software, it all goes through the American endpoint. You can't choose to put it through the European endpoint. But if I select all of those options with their defaults and download the results, I'll just be telling you what I had been adding recently. One is it can give you a confidence rating, and it can provide ways of visualizing that confidence rating across your original document. I think they do this quite nicely in the actual program, but it's more cost effective to use the API. So once this shouldn't take too much longer, I can show you something that I've done for visualizing confidence. So if I go to the confidence tab here, let's just make this full screen, go to the next page. There's lots of truth tables in here. If I select one of these, it will give me confidence ratings and gives me a sample of the LaTeX. And because I want this to be very accessible, I had to create a keyboard accessible toggle tip. So if I tag through here and then press enter, I can, this is all keyboard navigable. And maybe I want to have multiple open at the same time, so I can have multiple toggle tips open. I think the MathPix version, it relies on you hovering over. That's the last thing that I'll show before I get to my concluding slide, other than to say that I've set this up that you can drop in an API key. So this is the URL. If you want to have a play, we have an API key. If you want to give me any feedback, I will be very happy to receive it. And oh yes, the other thing is MathPix. They have MathPix Markdown, and so what I'm working on next is this is the MathPix Markdown. This is the preview, and so I've got I can compare the original PDF with the MathPix, or I can compare the Markdown, the the rendered preview and the PDF is I want to add in live editing, so I could edit that, save it out, review the preview if I wanted to like double check and improve. And then I'm going to add in an AI in like enhance button, try to then send the MathPix result, the original PDF, to an AI and get the AI to see if it could raise the confidence or the accuracy from like, so I get roughly 80%, I'd say, on more complex stuff, to take it up to 95% before the final human testing. So my last things from there is really interested to hear anyone else developing with MathPix, because I found their support is really unfair. I keep finding things that don't work and then they stop replying to me. Like they say that chemistry notation smiles should work. I sent them tons of debug information. Now they haven't replied. So I'm imagining that it doesn't work on the EU endpoint, but they won't tell me. And yeah, that was everything. Hope I didn't take up too much time, but it's always more time than you expect. Back to you, Cordelia.
Well, thank you for that, Matt. That was very, very exactly. That's what everyone's saying. It's amazing. It is amazing. Lots there and lots for us to go and play with, and probably tell you things that still don't work.
Yes, it's a journey, like everything in accessibility. And I mean, I just if I wouldn't have started it, the Pandoc thing, if I'd have known what I was getting myself into. But now that I've started it, I feel I ought to try to see it through as far as I can.
I think that's probably why lots of us are here. Vincenzo.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to make a negative comment, if you don't mind, which is about. I mean, it's about what I was saying about Pandoc and Tict. So that I would just still remind people that you also want to be able to take all of your existing documents, all your legacy documents, and the stuff that people write today, and somehow work with that. So the limitation of using Pandoc is that you're always going to have to adjust your documents heavily to make them work with Pandoc. So that's that's not going to cover all the possible uses that all the possible needs that people have with LaTeX. And certainly, if you want to get to a point where your entire staff, all of your mathematics, especially the people in maths, all of them using, creating accessible material, I don't think the Pandoc is the way to go. Right, you need to go deeper. You need to use the new tagging project, LaTeX ML, Chiron, or other things like that that are more flexible. Yeah, sorry about that, because it's a negative thing to say, sort of. But yeah, there is this consideration that I think is also important of just how do you get everybody on board? How do you get something that works for them? And that's really hard. So yeah.
I think that's a very good point. I think another point I'll just add on to that before Norman is it's also important we have a range of tools for people using different amounts of maths. And so there are people here who, I will go and teach a third-year maths course, and my accessibility needs are not the same as somebody teaching a social science introduction to statistics course. That there's we need a range of tools across all of that too. Norman.
I get the impression that Pandoc is targeted. It was aimed to be an everything to everything converter, and that means it's tremendously clever. But there are some definite trade-offs as a result of that, and so it might be that what we need here is not quite an everything to everything to everything converter, but a subset to subset thing, and hence the trade-off might be in a different place. So I'm sort of I note Matthew's point that he started in Pandoc, so he's going to see it through. But I think that I have a strong impression that Pandoc does run out of steam fairly quickly, for good reasons.
David.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as MathJax in a way. I mean, for new content, if you know you're working to subset, it's fine. I put a link earlier when Matthew was talking about real examples to the archive preprint server. I mean, if you use the LaTeX tagging project, which is using the full LaTeX, we also can't. Every now and then I take the last, just force myself to take the last couple of submissions to archive, and they tend to fail with us as well. I mean, people do all. You show some macros, which were like 1 line each. People write 1,000 lines of customization at the beginning of their document, and then wonder why it breaks stuff. But it's if you want to try a real example by a real unknown person, just go to archive, take the last real math submission, and just see what happens. It's depressingly instructional. It will fail almost certainly, but it is possible. We have a few examples on LaTeX project of real archive documents, but they don't all, and that's a long-term aim for us to take a large subset of the archive, which is like 2 million documents. It's a big test. But if we can do 70% of those, we'll be quite happy, but we can't at the moment.
I think at that point it's useful to cycle back to Cordelia's earlier point that there's multiple constituencies being addressed here, and that if something fails with bleeding edge maths with produced by someone who is feels uninhibited about adding macros, then that's a thing, but it might be not much of a practical problem for the in the context here. So I think that said, I think that there will be plenty of folk who are fairly uninhibited about writing their upper level maths courses and the macros they require. So I think that there's something of a point to be made that it's not necessarily a killing problem that the latest latent greatest from archive doesn't work, but it's I think that it's still very important to support the full range of things, because the gap between bleeding edge maths and upper level maths is not necessarily a big one. So I'm not actually disagreeing with anybody here. I'm not sure why I'm speaking.
Clarifying, it's always useful.